Stress testing is an add-on to your subscription that allows you to apply historical or randomly generated rates of inflation and investment returns to your projections. You can enable this add-on by selecting either Run Historical Scenario or Run Randomized Scenario from the planning page under the Run Scenario menu. As an important note, scenarios using these variable rates aren't intended to replace your base financial projection. We suggest creating a copy of your base plan and then performing stress testing on the copied version. Let's use Justin and Julie's base plan, where they have about $265,000 remaining in their financial assets in the last year of the projections. For each of the individual accounts, let's take a look at their rates of return and asset allocation. So Justin has a 40%, 60% split between fixed income and equity for his RSP and also for his TFSA, and also a non-registered joint account that has 100% cash with a 1% rate of return. Julie has the same asset allocation and rates of return in her projections, and we're using a 2.1% inflation rate. Let's start with historical scenarios. I can select Run Historical Scenario, and the pop-up modal appears, which I can select various year periods. For example, I can select a 10-year period, and we can choose from 2000 to 2010. I can see that the average annual rates of return for that period were between 2% real and 4.1% nominal. This is based on the 10% cash, 40% fixed income, and 50% equity mix, but we can adjust that to more closely match what we have in our own projections, which in this case was 40% fixed income and 60% equities. On a scale of 0, which is the worst, to 100, which is the best, this selected period is at 20 based on that real rate of return. I'm going to go ahead and apply and run this 10-year period, which will repeat throughout the projections. Here I can see Justin's rate of return for his RSP, and it's varying throughout every 10 years. So 0.85% does repeat again every 10 years. And the non-registered rate of return is different than the TFSA and RSP because it does have that different asset allocation. Let's go to the combined page so we can compare the final estate. If I look at the estate before tax, you can see that I actually have more money in this version, $639,000 in the final year of the projections. So if they live through the period 2000 to 2010 multiple times until the end of their projections, they would have a higher final estate than what was projected with the static rate of return originally. Before running the randomized scenario, we first have to clear the historical scenario. And once that is calculated, I can come back to the menu and choose Run Randomized Scenario. In this pop-up modal, we can see the projected value of $1,000 invested across different categories. So there's inflation, cash, fixed income, and equity. Again, I can update this chart to more closely match Julie and Justin's projections with 40% fixed income and 60% equities. Which this does not change what's happening in my projections, but it will update this chart to reflect these values. Snap has created 101 random sequences, and it's ordered them from the worst case scenario all the way to the best case scenario. It's left the slider in the middle at the 50% average case. So I can select the worst case, or I can select the best case and then update to see the details. Let's select maybe the 20th worst case, which means 20 of these 101 randomized sequences were worse than this case and 80 were better. Once I've updated, I can see the chart is reflected with new information. Under the show fine print, there's additional details. We can see the expected values. This was our original rates of return that we're using. And then this is showing us in this actual sequence what the rates of return over time are. I can hide the print, and then over the length of this projection, there's an average annual rate of return 1.14% of a real rate of return. I could choose to randomize again and generate another 101 sequences, but I'm going to go ahead and apply this to our scenario and see the results. And in this case, they actually have $0 in their financial assets at the final year. They've had to borrow money in order to maintain their spending. So we've actually run into a shortfall. If I scroll down, by age 96, there isn't as much money in their assets remaining to cover that spending for their lifetime. There's a wide range of use cases for both randomized and historical scenarios, and you can find out more information in our Help Center or by going to our instant answers and searching on stress testing. Contact us with any questions and we'll be happy to help.